All right, hey, what's up, guys? Coach Mac, Play Fast Football. I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about the simplest personnel group that gives us a ton of trouble, and I'm going to go through the reasons behind it based on not only our personnel, but the players that we have. But 3 of our games or 4 of our games that we lost this year, we saw this version or some version of this on offense, and it completely drove us nuts. Make sure you check out some of our partners, GameStrat, Sideline Replay System that we use at Bishop Kenny High School. I've used them for the last 6 years. If you're looking for highly reliable, highly affordable, check out GameStrat. Dome hats, headwear company we use. This is one of my newest Bishop Kenny fitted hats with our Crusader logo, BK on the back, Dome on the side. If you want completely customizable, make sure you check out Dome. Former Florida football players that understand coaching, understand the world we live in. They want to do it right for you. Stock hats suck. Baker Sports, company we use for our Spirit Pack gear, coaches sideline gear, game nights, our practice gear, our uniforms are distributed from them. We do some shoulder pad stuff with pro gear through them. So if you want to get all of your coaches, players, fan gear in one convenient location, check out Baker Sporting Goods. Just Play Football, which is the playbook software that we use. We use it for our installs, we use it for our meetings, we use it in our presentation mode for our meetings. We give some quizzes on our installs, game plans. Everything we do is through Just Play. I think it's the best play drawing tool on the market. I use it for my Patreon site. Any clinics I'm going to speak at, I always use Just Play. And then DifferenceUSA, the ultimate striking machine. Get thousands of reps without needing a partner. They hook right up to the racks in your weight room, so it's an easy setup. You can work on it in season, off season, striking, elbows in, thumbs up, striking violently. You don't need a partner. You don't need anybody holding a bag. You don't have to risk injury with somebody holding a bag, so you can get all the reps you need in season, out of season. If you want to strike violently, you have to practice striking violently. And then just a shout out to a couple of the guys that have already contributed to the Play Fast studio, Mario Caniglio, Dan Hancock, Dan Haber, and Eric Stoutman. Thank you so much to you guys for your contributions, getting ready to start planning, and I'm currently, now that football's over, rearranging that room in my house to get ready to figure out what we want to do with the whiteboard, what the setup wants to be. But we want a studio at home for Play Fast, for videos that I can shoot without having to shoot them. Right now I'm in an equipment room without having to shoot them at a whiteboard that is convenient at school. I want to be able to shoot them at home. When I go on YouTube Live, I want a whiteboard behind me. If I do any consulting work or clinics with people that contact me on the side, I want to be able to draw things. So working on a Play Fast studio. If you want to contribute to that, it's at Play Fast Football, 8740, Cash App, Venmo, PayPal. If I've helped you along the way and you want to help us out, feel free. Any donation that you make or any pledge that you make, I am responding with virtual clinic stuff that we've done. So anything that I have that I can give back to you for your contribution is greatly appreciated. So, you know, the most talented team we saw on our schedule this year, skill-wise, was a 10 personnel team that was 2x2, 3x1, and a lot of empty. And ironically, even though they had the most talent on the perimeter, that's not the offense that gave us anywhere near as much trouble. Towards the end of the season, the offense that started giving us trouble were people that were coming out in 12 or 30 or even 21, however you want to look at it, personnel groupings where they had multiple tight end fullbacks on the field. And they were getting into schemes where they were using less pullers, and they were using the multiple tight end fullbacks as their blockers. And we saw a bunch of different schemes. All right, but you know, the first thing it does for us in our tight 3-high world is it gets us to a point where you have to figure out the biggest thing to me, and this is the kind of the conundrum you get into with coaching, because these guys are in a position where they can go vertical, and because play action, tight end, sniffer, vertical, pop pass stuff is always something that you're concerned about. Every time I approach this structure, I have to make sure that I defend those guys going vertical, right? So if you want to be 1-high and you want to get, you know, we thought about 1-high stuff and getting more guys closer to the box or more guys in the box. Well, if I'm 1-high and both those guys go vertical, can we defend it? All right, obviously the splits, the deployment, you can get it done. If we're 1-high, we lose that safety as a fitter. We are very small on defense, so we're constantly trying to get 9, 8, however many guys to the box we can, always trying to play quarters, always trying to add extra fitters. The amount of times that those guys went vertical in the games that we saw, 0. All right, those guys went vertical 0 times in the games that we saw, but yet you always have to worry about defending it. So for us, in our structure, first thing we have to figure out is when we declare the Sam to a side, that side's kind of easy for us. We can play quarters to that side. Sam is D-gap support. He's the first player to the flat. Safety's got that vertical. He can add in the run fit. All right, if we want to leave the middle safety fit off of number 3, we've got to do something to the backside. All right, now, if I leave the will in the box because I'm getting a lot of heavy runs, now I've got to figure out what I want to do back here. Well, if you look at this side, similar to your old 4-2-5 stuff, away from the Sam, all right, if I can't put a body outside that number 2, it's tough for me to play true quarters because 2 to the flat is going to have to be handled by the safety, and to me, that makes that more like a lock deal. So now we've got to play lock man-to-man. All right, we've got to play lock man-to-man on these 2 and hope that we have a safety that we can rep a ton on when he gets inserts and blocks from this tight end sniffer. He's got to be a guy that can fit, but he's also got to handle him to the flat. He's also got to handle him, all right, vertical. And I'll show you the scheme that gave us a little bit of trouble at times with that. So for us, what we end up doing a lot of the times is we end up having to drop a safety down, but then it makes my middle safety play away from the Sam, and it gets us to play quarters on both sides, which we're comfortable doing. All right, so we're comfortable running quarters on both sides, but it puts a ton of stress on these guys to make a bunch of tackles, and then where it really puts stress when the teams are good enough, it is very hard to get help for your corners versus that structure when you're trying to get a bunch of guys to the box to fit runs, which we always have to do. Our 5 in the box are not winning against somebody else's 5 in the box most of the time. All right, we have smaller defensive linemen, very active, really, really solid linebacker play. Okay, but this set gets us to where we've got to put our corners on an island so that our safeties can get involved in the run fit, right? In our base structure, how we do things. Now, to say that that's the only way we lined up, all right, we did play some 4-down stuff. All right, so we did play some traditional 4-down stuff. All right, the question in the 4-down stuff all the time is, again, if it's a 4-2-5 structure and I play it from 4 down and I set the Sam to this side, all right, I'm going to get stuck in the same issues on this side now. I'm going to have to lock that, okay? And when I lock that side, now that safety's got to be a run supporter playing man-to-man. He's got to match that guy to the flat. I don't have any help from him in the flat, okay? So when I lock that, it makes those jobs a little bit difficult, all right? We try to play with a heavy 5. Got hurt this past week in our playoff game. Our 5 went up the field, down block scheme, didn't spill it. They ripped a big run on us. So, you know, playing that heavy 5, getting them to spill, all those things. It all comes down to playing football, right? All these schemes, all these things. You got to play solid football. You got to read blocks. You got to fit runs. You got to tackle. But to me, the structure of what they were doing was part of the issue that gave us some trouble. If we drop this safety down, all right, to this side, now because this is a vertical threat, I don't feel comfortable playing a midpoint technique with the corner if those 2, especially with the ball in the middle of the field, if these 2 players can rip vertical and I don't get hands on them, that's a long stretch for the corner. So now I got to take that other safety and I got to move him to the middle. All right, I've got to move that other safety kind of into the middle and play more 3 deep structures, and you can say, all right, you're going to let him run the alley, he's going to be a run fitter. That's not really what we do. We don't teach it that way. That could be similar to our 3 high guy, where we could tell him, hey, you're fitting off 3, you're going to run the alley, you're going to be the 9th hat in the box. But how do you handle the 2 guys vertical? Now, the question you're going to ask is, well, coach, they never went vertical. Yeah, I know they never went vertical when I go back and look at it on film. But when you're playing an offense like that with 2 tight ends that are lined up there, if you don't defend them vertically and you give up that shot, you're going to have a lot of questions to answer to your head coach, your boss, or whoever it may be. So you have to be able to handle them vertical, or at least the threat of them going vertical, right? So now, what were we getting from that scheme? Well, the thing that it did for most offenses is it allowed them to eliminate pullers. So like when we play our tight front stuff, all right, it gives people some issues with how they want to pull based on how they want to handle, all right, the 4 eyes. So when we try to play our tight front stuff, which we try to play as much as possible, this scheme allowed them to eliminate pullers. So it allowed them to go back to traditional gap schemes where they could down block, they could work doubles there and get to the will, they could leave guys on the backside, and now they were using the 2 extra bodies and they were running traditional gap schemes. They were running traditional gap scheme RPOs, right? So it's kind of like, you know, a version of duo in a way. It's power without a puller. All right, they're working all their double teams. They're doing all the things that they need to do. They're getting extra hats where they need to get extra hats. And for us, it puts a lot of stress on these guys to have to be able to fit and make tackles. But again, the stress it puts on those players. All right, so in our playoff game, one of the issues we had, all right, it was in the box, all right, the team we were playing was probably, anywhere from 265 to 270 up front. The tight end sniffer bodies were, 225 to 235 pound kids. All right, well, for me, in our box, all right, up front, our D-line, for me, my D-line averages about 185 pounds. Okay, and then my LBs probably average 195. Now, I know that's a little bit weird for some people. Your linebackers are heavier than your D-line. That's the personnel we have. There's nothing we can do with that. That's what we got to play with. So, inside the box itself, I was worried about this matchup on this matchup. Now, 2 weeks ago, we played the same team, and they went with 11 personnel. And we were able to fit things off the sniffer, and we were able to get extra bodies where we needed them. And we were solid in the run game. We just couldn't defend the throw game. All right, they've got very good quarterback, very good receiver, another good receiver that caused you fits. So we struggled in the throw game. Well, this time they came out in 12 personnel and said, hey, we're going to run it. We're going to carry our RPOs and our access throws, but we're going to force you to stop the run. So when they went to these schemes, there were less pullers involved. They could handle the four eyes. They could get the bodies into double teams where they wanted to get them. They put a lot of stress on our force players, hard joining, all right, our cutback players getting involved, and then our two safeties getting involved. All right, but the other thing it did was it still gave them the ability to run their RPO access game. Because as a quarters-based team, at some point you have to be comfortable with your corners playing man-to-man, and you're not going to be able to get them a ton of help. All right, the only way I can get these guys help is I have to widen and soften the overhangs. If I widen and soften the overhangs, am I good enough to defend runs in the box? Right, so if the overhangs get widened out or they get softened, am I good enough to handle runs in the box? Okay, so for us with the matchup, we've got to defend the box first and make people throw the ball, which they were able to do, which is why they are a very good football team and which is why they gave us a lot of trouble. So I've got to trust my corners to be one-on-one on the outside. So now you've got that matchup that you got to worry about. All right, and then I've got to trust my second and third level fitters. Safeties have to have a really good day with their eyes, their discipline, their fits, because we're constantly fitting things from the back level. All right, now, what else were we seeing from that set? Well, we were seeing some counter stuff, right? So, and I'll draw it the other way. It's easier for me if I draw it when I'm thinking offensively, if I draw it this way. So we would get both sniffers set to the same side. Okay, so same issue for us, whichever way you want to play it, all right, even if you play it. Even if you play 8-man front stuff. So what we were seeing is all right, sniffer same side. So now without having to pull the lineman, they were able to stay solid on the backside. They got their double there back. They got their down block there. We were getting kick, wrap schemes, all right, double, sniffer lead, counter, however you want to look at it, right? It's a version of counter. It's got a kick and a wrap, okay? But that puts pressure on us because the guy that's kicking is bigger than the guy that's spilling. So I've got to rely on him to do a consistent job all the time. And then I've got to win with these angles because they don't have to use linemen as pullers. They're getting the double teams where they want. So we've got to win somewhere in the box with their 5, technically, on our 5. If we go 8-man front, I feel like I kind of lose that free safety from the fit. And the overhangs now are tighter to the run fit, so I'm still putting corners on an island, whether it's 3 deep or man free. Okay? So this scheme for us, personnel-wise, and again, it's not really the scheme itself. What did we see? We saw duo, veer, however you want to call the blocking scheme. We saw a full gap, no pullers, sniffers as extra bodies. Okay? There was one week where the one that gave us even more trouble was a team that direct snapped it to the quarterback. So now they gave us that presentation. Again, however you want to line up to it, right? However you feel like you need to line up to that. Well, now they gave us that presentation, and they gave us the ability to block everybody up solid. Right? And now it's just a matter of extra helmets at the point of attack and can you win inside the box. Right? So there's nothing revolutionary about that scheme. There's nothing revolutionary about what they're doing. It's a full gap scheme using the extra bodies and snapping it to a quarterback that is a really good athlete. In high school, what happens is, can you win the matchup in the box that you need to win? Okay? Because, you know, the same scheme that would give us trouble and would give us fits the week before or the week after might only score 6 points against somebody else. The same scheme that gave us trouble in the playoff game the week before, all right, that team was beaten running clocked. Okay, so all these things that give us trouble are things that you have to identify. They gave us trouble. So a lot of you are going to watch this video and go, oh, Coach, we just play it like this and we would smash all those runs. Okay, maybe you do, right? But for us, with our personnel and the way we try to play, this scheme gives us a bunch of issues. And I tip my hat to the coaches we play to be disciplined enough to say, hey, look, yeah, all this other stuff is great. But at the end of the day, bottom line, if we get into this and force them to fit runs over and over again, they're going to have a hard time because they're just not big enough. They're not physical enough, right? So you've got to give coaches credit where credit is due. People looked at our film. They figured out what we do well. We defend 11 personnel spread stuff from our 3 high fairly well the last 2 years. All right, the team that we just lost to in the playoffs and we lost to for the district championship, we beat last year for the district championship, held them to 13 points. This year they scored 50 and 45 on us. Okay, they figured out what they do well, what we struggle with. All right, a team that we beat last year 50-something to 22 beat us this year 31-28. They figured out what they do well and what we don't do well and what we struggle with, and that's good football for those coaching staffs, right? So we didn't sit and play it one way all night long, all right? We changed. We played 3 down. We played 4 down, all right? There was a game where I pressured 42 out of 88 snaps. 47% of the snaps were 5 or 6 man pressures because I couldn't handle, in either of the fronts that I tried to play, I couldn't handle the big bodies up front that were wearing us out, so I had to start moving. All right, the one that gave us, and we ended up winning this game, but the one that gave us a little bit of trouble 2 weeks ago, so 2 weeks ago we started getting some wham schemes. They were arc releasing to get to the mic. They were putting him solid on the front side force player. They were doubling the nose back, they were doubling the 4-eye back, and they were using that player as a wham blocker on the 4-eye. Right? Nothing new. 4-eye, unblocked, down block from the guard. He's got to squeeze, he's got to try and spill that, get the ball to go wider. Put all the stress on him, and all the stress on the corners out there. Right? If you're trying to play quarters defense, it's hard to get help for those corners that are there. If you're trying to play quarters defense, they're going to be on an island. All right? Even if you lock one side, if you're playing old 4-2-5, if you're playing red zone quarters, press quarters, whatever you want to call that deal. If the safety's got 2 to the flat, that means that guy doesn't have a ton of help, especially on like flat post, wheel post. You'll never get help from the safety. In a true quarters world, if 2 went to the flat, the safety could actually help you build a fence on 1 to the post. But if you're playing it in a press quarters, red zone quarters, whatever you want to look at it, all right, however you want to look at that, if the safety has 2 to the flat, you'll never get help on number 1. So it causes a lot of stress to me. It's a very simplistic personnel grouping. It's a very simplistic picture that causes a lot of stress. It lets their linemen get off the ball. It eliminates linemen pulling. It lets them use their athletic bodies where they need to use them. All right, and it can cause a lot of issues for a team. Now, one of the other ones that got us, and I think this is just a good scheme, it's read football. But again, depending on how you're playing, those fullback sniffer bodies, all right, one of the ones that gave us a little bit of trouble was we started getting the read scheme to where they would just be solid, all right, so they'd be solid there. They would work, all right, they would work this up, they would work this up, they would take him and put him on the flat player, they would take him and run him to the flat, and they would run just your typical zone read stuff inside. We were trying to get the ball sent to that player because that was the free hitter. Now they put us in a little bit of a bind because they were blocking the player that might have potentially been responsible for that player going to the flat. So we started getting some read schemes with backside bluff schemes with guys going to the flat. So that became a little bit of an issue. So to me, there's so many simple things you can do out of that personnel grouping, all right, that are solid. They're gap schemes. You're getting extra blockers. You're getting 7 helmets in the blocking scheme. You're creating one-on-ones outside. So to me, it's a very simplistic game plan to create. I like my guys out there. I like my quarterback. 7-on-7 in the run game, force safeties or overhangs to make tackles depending on how you're blocking things. You still have quarterback runs. Like I said, we got some direct snap quarterback runs with 3 lead blockers that gave us an issue. You still have RPOs. You still have read game. So, again, the team we played last week, one of their big ones, they would leave him on the front side. They would leave him on the back side. He would kind of help work the 4-eye and then climb up there. And their best dude was running that. And the backside guy might have been running access or something along those lines. So they had the ability to rip the access. They had the ability to read out the RPO and throw it to their best guy who's got 50 Division I offers in 10th grade. Tough matchup. Really good player. They had the ability to still carry out their RPO. So again, to me, sometimes the simplest schemes, the simplest personnel are the things that give you the most trouble. At least I know for us, for me. All right, we look at all the 11 personnel stuff, all the spread stuff, all the tempo stuff. We look at all that stuff and worry about it all the time. And these simple double sniffer, double tight end theories were the ones that gave us the most trouble. So what do we have to approach in the offseason? How do we defend these sets? How do I defend, all right, these bigger body sets? Do we have to find different players to use up front? Do we have to change our front structure, our coverage structure? What do we need to do to defend these sets? Because that's what football is all about, right? So as much as there's all the study out there of new offense, revolutionary offense, spread, 11, movement guys, these teams were very little motion, very little shift, very little trade. One of them played really fast. The other one played in a scan tempo to us, all right? And those are both games that we lost where they scored more than 30 points and they ran the ball for more than 200 yards in those games, right? Very simple. Causes, for me at least, I don't know, there's probably a lot of you that are going to respond to this video and say, Coach, we would line up like this and we would smash that. God bless you. Okay, for us, we lined up in tight front, we lined up in 4 down. We pressured, we moved, we played 3 deep, we played quarters. We did everything. The second time around, we played a bunch of man-free or tried to play man-free. We did everything I thought we had within our structure to defend those sets, and it ended up coming up short. One of the games, we ended up winning 29-26, we're able to get a couple stops, a couple key turnovers. But that set, that personnel grouping, for me, that's kind of like my kryptonite. It's what I have to study in the offseason, right? Everybody, every coach, every coordinator has their kind of bugs, their glitches. For me, it's that personnel grouping, and the more people found out about it, the more people ran it, and hats off to them. That's good coaching on their part. Bad coaching on my part because I didn't figure out a way with my players to defend it. So hope this video kind of helps you out understanding whether you look at it as a defensive video or an offensive video. To me, that's your choice. To me, it's a video about why or how we struggle with a simple personnel grouping and how I think offensively sometimes we recreate the wheel a little bit too much when you can just come out and something as simple as that. No pullers, all gap schemes, all down blocks or back blocks. Use your tight end fullback as your pullers. You still got power, you still got counter, you got a bunch of read game, you got a bunch of RPOs. Really simplistic in nature. And for us, was kind of the kryptonite of our season. We could not, one time we defended it, but most of the other times we did not defend it well enough to win the games that we needed to win. All right, so hopefully this video helps you out. Remember, guys, if you want to help contribute, make a donation, a pledge to the PlayFast Studio, any amount at PlayFast Football 8740, Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, anything you contribute, I will respond with a donation of a clinic that we've done, virtual clinic stuff that we've done. So any of the guys that helped me out here, I will send them clinic stuff. I've sent some split field stuff. I've sent some Blitz family stuff. I sent some other virtual clinics that we had. So again, thank you guys for following us. We are on a big time quest now that the season's over. I've got about 6 weeks to get 100,000 views to get to 4 million. I would love to get to 4 million before 2024. So we've got to get the content out. We've got to get it out hot and heavy. Join me tonight on YouTube Live. Talk a little bit about our season. Talk about college football. I've got something interesting I want to look at. There are 7 Big Ten teams in the top 30 of the NCAA in defense this year. Is that because they play great defense, or is that because there are 0 top 10 offenses, all right, in the Big Ten? We'll look at the SEC. I'll look at some ways that you need to identify what you're studying and what numbers really mean when it comes to that stuff. So join us tonight on YouTube Live, 8 or 8:30 Eastern tonight. Thanks for following. Thanks for being here. Remember, subscribe. All right, turn your notifications on. You know every time we do a video or go on YouTube Live. Thumbs up, thumbs down if you like the content. Don't like the content, you can give this a thumbs down and say, hey, Coach, we smoke that set every time we see it. God bless you. It gives me absolute fits. So comment, tell me what you do, how you handle it, movements, pressures, coverage, fronts. I'm willing to listen to all of it because that personnel grouping gives us absolute fits. Remember, you won't play well until you play fast. Thanks for being here. See you guys next time.